Education Business Meeting of December 14, 2021. This meeting is being conducted by a hybrid video conferencing and is also being live streamed by the county channel. We will now call the public session to order. Do we have any action as necessary or appropriate regarding matters discussed in executive session? Mr. Davis, please.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I move we approve the superintendent's recommendations for employment listed on the November 1st and November 30, 2021 personnel application report.
Second. Mr. Duncan will make a second. Any discussion? Ms. Rowland? Oh, thank you. All right, voting is open.
Yes.
Middleton, yes. Goodrich, yes. The motion is approved unanimously. That looks a little strange, Mom.
Yeah,
It should be. There's just, I abstained, so. Oh.
Okay, so the motion still is approved. 10 yeses and 1 abstention. Ingrid vote right. Mr. Scrivener, do we have any further actions necessary or appropriate coming out of executive session?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move that the Board of Education approve amendment number 6 with CPRE Erie, which authorizes a not to exceed limit of $1,713,667 for the year 2022 program management plan.
Ms. Rowland? Second. Any discussion? There being no hands up, voting is open.
Wait 1 second, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Voting is open.
Yes, Bob.
The motion is approved. 8-1-2. 1 no is William Smith, and the abstentions are Dr. Nesky and Ms. Bogart. Do you have any further action necessary or appropriate coming out of executive session, Mr. Scrivener?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move that the Board of Education approve the adult ed homeschool report for December 2021.
Ms. Rowland? Second. Any discussion? Mr. Smith?
I will approve the report, but I did express concerns that, hopefully that we will have less students that are being transferred from our regular schools, to the Audit program. Hopefully that we can retain our students and get our students to graduate in the regular school, session. But the regular school have their regular school ceremonies and I'll finish out at the school that they are assigned to, that they start 9th grade. Thank you.
Voting is open.
Yes. Yes.
The motion is approved. 10-01, the one abstention is Ingrid Bogarde. Before we approve the agenda, I just want to point out something at the beginning of the agenda, and that is that if you're listening from home or participating remotely and would like to request to make a public comment during our second session, these, the request, which must include, can be emailed to the board, and it needs to be emailed tonight to Amelia, Amelia, .mercado, MERCADO, at Beaufort.k12.sc.us. And if you email Amelia with your name, phone number, and topic between 7 and 7:30 this evening, you will be contacted during the second public comments to give your comments, and the second public comments will take place prior to adjournment, no later than 9 p.m. And the second public forum comment is limited to 15 minutes. If you're in person, you need to fill out a public comment card to participate in our public comments. So we now need a motion to approve the agenda. Kathy, rule on.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the agenda.
Ingrid Bogarde.
Second.
Did
you hear that? Sorry.
Second. Mr. Melville?
Madam Chair, I second that motion.
Okay, we already had a second, so that's fine. Thank you. Mr. Smith?
I would like to pull off OE 15 off the consent agenda, as well as OE 18 off the consent agenda.
All right. You said OE 15 and 18, correct, Mr. Smith?
Yes, from OE 15 and 16, I mean, OE 15 and 18.
Okay. So those will not be part of the consent agenda, they will be discussed separately at the appropriate time. All right, there being no further hands up, voting is open.
And also, OE 10.
Okay. So Mr. Smith reviewed 3 operational expectations from the consent agenda, 10, 15, and 18. So the question is now called for approval of agenda.
Yes.
The agenda is approved unanimously. We will now stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated for a moment of silence. The state, the media has been properly notified. Tonight's student performance is the Hilton Head Island Elementary Singing Sea Otters performing a Christmas melody under the direction of music teacher Michelle Hummel. Welcome, Singing Sea Otters.
Hi, my name is Michelle Hummel. I'm the music director here at Hilton Head Island Elementary IB, and these are our singing otters. They're going to be singing a Christmas medley and Cray Cray Christmas. Enjoy!
Deck the halls with boughs of holly, la 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 la. 'Tis the season to be jolly, la 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 la. Now we have our gay and carol, la 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 la. Troll the ancient Yuletide carol, la 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 la. Oh, Christmas tree, how lovely are your branches. Oh, Christmas tree, how steadfast are your branches. You know the breeze in summertime, and through the snow of winter time. Oh, Christmas tree, how lovely are your branches. We wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Everybody be a reindeer, everybody be a star, everybody sing a Christmas song, driving in your car. Santa, are you ready? Bells prepare to charm. Everyone go crazy 'cause it's Cray Cray Christmas time. Cray Cray Christmas, Cray Cray Christmas time. Went from one store to another, found a present for my mother. Got the somewhere she won't find it, under my letter right behind. Took some present, took some cake, got the paper in the shape. It ain't perfect, it don't matter, I'm gonna be a Christmas rapper. Cray Cray Christmas, Cray Cray Christmas time. Cray Cray Christmas, Cray Cray Christmas time. Everybody be a reindeer, everybody be a star, everybody sing a Christmas song, driving in your car. Santa, are you ready? Bells prepare to chime. Everyone go crazy 'cause it's Cray Cray Christmas time. Cray Cray Christmas, Cray Cray Christmas time. Went from one store to another, found a present for my mother. Got her somewhere she won't find it, under her letter right behind. Took some presents, took some cake, got the paper in the shape. It ain't perfect, it don't matter, I'm gonna be a Christmas rapper. Cray Cray Christmas, Cray Cray Christmas time. Cray Cray Christmas, Cray Cray Christmas time.
Thank you to the singing sea otters. That definitely gets everybody in a cheery holiday mood. Next up on our agenda are the points of celebration. I'll turn this over to Dr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, and can you tell which of those songs was your favorite? We start points of celebration today, talking about our character education student of the month for November. And our character education program was formed to support parents' efforts to develop good character in their children. And tonight, we're celebrating the Character Ed Students of the Month of November. November's character traits were respect, gratitude. Respect is defined as showing high regard for authority, other people, self, and country, and understanding that all people have value as human beings. And gratitude is defined as showing that you are thankful for what others have done for you. November Student of the Month for Northern Beaufort County is Emily Herrera Ventura, a first grade student at Closeouts Elementary School. Showing respect is one of the most important traits that each one of us should possess and practice. Having respect for yourself and for your community members is extremely important. Being respectful includes being kind to others, seeing situations through their eyes, having empathy, communicating in an appropriate way, considering the feelings of others when making decisions regarding what you do and say, and being an active listener, and so much more. Emily displays this character trait daily. Often, when we think of gratitude, we think of being thankful for what we have. This is one part of having gratitude, but there is much more to it as well. It also involves being generous towards those around us. It is the realization that each and every one of us can have a positive impact on those around us and the world. Emily wants to help others. She is polite and understanding of those around her. When people are kind to her, she really thinks about how thoughtful those actions were and how she may then pass that feeling on to others. Emily truly displays and embraces this month's trait of respect and gratitude. For Southern Beaufort County, the November Student of the Month is Prisley Santos Maldonado, an 8th grader at Bluffton Middle School. Around this time of year, we often remember the qualities of gratitude. Gratitude is a feeling of appreciation or thanks. Prisley's English language arts teacher shared that one 8th grader in particular is an exemplary student who exhibits the qualities of gratitude and respect each day. She not only shows gratitude toward teachers, but to other students as well. Her teacher shared that Prisley is one of the most grateful, respectful, and genuinely kind students that she has ever taught at Bluffton Middle School. Prisley always remembers to say please and thank you when others forget. She volunteers to help without being asked to do so, when most students might hesitate. And she translates for other students who need support during class. Prisley walks into school with a smile and makes sure that others are having a good day. After speaking with Prisley, people walk away feeling valued and important. Congratulations, Emily and Prisley. The next item on points of celebration is Beaufort High School is talking about Beaufort High School senior who earned the 60th Annual United States Senate Youth Program recognition. This month, State Superintendent of Education Molly Spearman announced that Beaufort High senior Emmett O'Brien has been selected as one of 2 delegates to the 60th Annual United States Senate Youth Program this coming March. The United States Senate Youth Program was established in 1962 by U.S. Senate resolution in a unique educational experience for outstanding high school students interested in pursuing careers in public service. As a student delegate, Emmett will hear major policy addresses by senators, cabinet members, officials from the Departments of State and Defense, and directors of other federal agencies. He will even hear from the President of the United States and the Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court. In addition, Emmett also received a $10,000 college scholarship for undergraduate studies with encouragement to pursue coursework in history and political science. I have a short video for you.
Carolina delegate to the United States Senate Youth Program.
Oh my.
Receiving a surprise phone call, South Carolina State Superintendent Molly Spearman called to congratulate Beaufort High School's Emmett O'Brien for being awarded the U.S. Senate Youth Program Scholarship. Emmett is one of only 2 students in the state to earn the $10,000 college scholarship.
You rose to the top, and it's because of all the great things you've been doing there in your school and community?
I'm just honored to be able to represent the state of South Carolina. I'm honored that the Department of Education and all the judges had the confidence in me to know that I can be the messenger for this state on a national scale.
Last month, during a youth and government conference in Columbia, Emmett was recognized by the state superintendent for advancing to the top 10 in the scholarship program.
So the first part of this was each high school principal can nominate someone, so I had to talk to Ms. Summers. I received her nomination. The second part of this is you take an online civics exam administered by the Department of Education. The 30 highest scorers on that become the semifinalists. In November, I wrote an essay for the competition, and the 10 highest scores on the essay and digital presentation were the finalists. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. It's an incredible honor.
The scholarship is awarded to students interested in pursuing careers in public service, and Emmett's planning to go to college to study political science.
I think that the most value in public service and civics that this scholarship represents is the value of serving a community. It gives you an opportunity to serve the people you came from, and that's what's really important to me about this.
Emmett is an outstanding student and is involved in many clubs and organizations at the school.
He just has a heart for people. He has a heart for his community. He has a heart for his school. He is definitely a leader, a compassionate, visionary leader that just strives to make a difference in our school. He's been an asset to our school since his freshman year and served on student council since his freshman year. He's always engaged, always involved, always friendly, and always kind. And then on top of that, his academics are through the roof. He is just great.
In March, Emmett has the opportunity to attend a conference in Washington, D.C. with the scholarship winners from each state to learn more about the federal government. At Beaufort High School, Ron Lopes, Beaufort County School District.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I'm honored by this opportunity, and I'll represent y'all well.
I know you will.
If you've ever had the chance to meet Emmett, you know what an impressive young man he is. So congratulations, Emmett. Next item in points of celebration, we have members from the Beaufort County Youth Conference Steering Committee and Youth Planner here with us today.
Good evening to everyone. We're so glad to be here, and thank you for allowing us to make this presentation. I'm Carrie Major, the founder and chairperson of the Beaufort County Youth Conference, and we're under the umbrella of CARES, and we are a 501(c) organization. Represented here tonight is everyone, steering committee members, our youth planners. We want everyone to see our youth. Yes, they're very important to us. We put a lot into our youth because we want them to be better citizens as well. But we thank God for the volunteers who serves on our steering committee. This is our 29th year, and that's how long we have been going for.
Good evening, everyone. The 29th Annual Youth Conference was held September 25th, 2021. This was our second virtual conference. For those that are not familiar with the Youth Conference, its primary goal is to provide middle and high school students with information, knowledge, and material designed to help them learn how to make healthy choices and decisions. Additionally, to help students develop skills that foster successful outcomes during their school years and into their adult lives.
Good evening. The reason for us being here tonight is to acknowledge and honor Superintendent Dr. Frank Rodriguez for his support of the Beaufort County Youth Conference. During his meeting for the second year in a row, Dr. Rodriguez's message is very encouraging to our youth. So we thank him and present him with this certificate, which reads, Certificate of Appreciation, Beaufort County 29th Annual Youth Conference presents to Frank Rodriguez, Superintendent, for support and invaluable services on this 25th day of September 2021.
And together has awesome t-shirt designed by the 2021 Youth Conference. Our theme, this is America.
As you can see, we all have our t-shirts on. And who designed it? Our youth designed it.
Thank you all so much again for allowing us to share this with you. This organization and the conference is very important to us. It's giving back to the community. And we want to thank you, Dr. Rodriguez, again, for the support that you have provided. And we want to strengthen, hopefully in 22, the partnership that we have with the Beaufort County School District. Also with all of the organizations in the community that support and help us out. We have collaborative partners from a lot of the social organizations and civic organizations, a lot of the sororities and fraternities, the church organizations, all have supported us throughout the years. Okay, and our youth planning session will be March 26, 2022 for this year. The coming year, I'm sorry, that will be our 30th. The conference itself will be on Saturday, September 24th. It's always the fourth Saturday of September. So please look for the advertising to promote it. We're trying to increase the diversity aspect of it. We reach out to communities for all people, different walks, different races. We've had some diversity, but we're pushing that more. We want to come into the school system. We want to be a partner. We hear and see some of the things going on in the schools, and we want to be a part of the solution for that. So we're not sure yet if the platform will be hybrid, if it will be face-to-face or virtual or a combination, but be listening out for that and we'll let you know. So thank you very much.
I want to also acknowledge our board member, Will Smith, who's a supporter of our organization also. So thank you for always working with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You caught me by surprise tonight and you turned the tables on me. So I appreciate you very much. Thank you. Next item, can you hear me? The next item on the agenda for Winter Celebration is the game ball presentation, and this is an initiative that I started this year, and it's one that I'm particularly proud of because what we do here is we recognize typically our employees who have really demonstrated outstanding leadership and outstanding qualities in support and service to the students that we're privileged and honored to serve every day. And so this evening, I've got two employees that I want to recognize today. And it doesn't just have to be employees now. We can recognize kids and others that do great things. But I want to share with you two outstanding examples today. So the first one that I want to recognize is Miss Monique Monk Thomas. Miss Monique, if you're here, would you step forward with me, please? Ms. Monique is an outstanding member of our transportation team. She always goes above and beyond to ensure the safety of each child. Monique is someone that you can always count on to help and be professional during any situation. As most of you know, there have been shortages in the transportation department, not only in our district, but in districts across the country. And she has been instrumental in the Boston transportation office. Monique fills in as a dispatcher on field trips, in special ed and other home to school routes as needed. We have heard from many people that she is wonderful to work with and is highly respected by her peers, school officials, and her immediate supervisor. A couple of weeks ago, during a route, a bus was rear-ended by a truck. Principal Brown, if you can join me here as well. Principal Brown went to the scene to ensure everyone was fine. When she arrived, not only were students safe, but they were also calm. This was all due to their amazing bus driver that day. It's wonderful. In addition, the students to a new bus made sure that they were calm while keeping them happy and secure. Thank you, Ms. Monk Thomas. Thank you for taking such good care of our beloved elementary students. Your calm, professional, and kind approach in that moment made a difference. We also have transportation community way well here in support and recognition of this month. Thank you for doing it. I have 2 game balls for you down. Next game ball. Ms. Carrie Kearns, if you would join me up here, Principal Bornstein will be joining me up here. A little bit of stuff today. Yeah, I know. Ms. Carrie Kearns is a true champion for kids in the May River community. With the sudden resignation of our first teacher, Carrie, math teacher, stepped in. With a show must go on mentality and a fall production that was a mere 2 weeks away, she took the reins of a group that had little prep time to date. She dedicated countless hours of her planning time and after school to working with the students in preparation for a show that in many circumstances would have just been canceled. At one point, she shared the stress of the load, stating that several students had family flying in from across the country. The show was a definite highlight to the community, needing a lift from COVID. When the show ended, she shared that the next step was to organize the winter choral performance, just a mere 2 weeks ago. Again, she performed her magic, and the show definitely went on. As a side note, Carrie could teach any subject of her choosing as a math. She chose a schedule that has her working a full year with high school Algebra 1 students. These are the students that she felt most needed her. So Carrie, I got a chance to attend that performance myself, and you and the kids did an amazing job, and I truly appreciate your dedication. Thank you very much. That concludes the points of celebration.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. So Molly, we're now down to the first public comment.
I have not received any.
You did not receive any? Okay. So we do not have any members of the public participating in our first public comment session. So we're now down to the chairman's report. Five board members attended the annual South Carolina School Board Association Legislative Conference and Delegate Assembly held in Charleston the first weekend in December. You heard from state legislators, the budget director of the South Carolina Senate Finance Committee, and a University of South Carolina School of Law professor. We then voted on the 2022 South Carolina School Board Association legislative resolutions that will be brought forward to the General Assembly this spring. One new resolution on mental health services was referred to the South Carolina School Board Association Board of Directors for wordsmithing and finality. I personally have attended several of these legislative conferences in the past and thought the program this year was particularly good. Last week, the board and superintendent participated in a half-day workshop facilitated by Peggy Torrey on using the coherent governance model with fidelity. We discussed ways to improve our use of board committees, our operational expectations, our results monitoring, and our board meetings, both in length and content. Several participants reached out to me following the workshop and expressed how helpful and beneficial the session was for the board, and they would like to continue having this type of professional development. And finally, the Board of Education wishes our students, their families, and the entire school district staff safe, happy, and enjoyable holidays. And we are now down to the committee reports. Our first report would be from William Smith regarding BJA, the Academy for Career Excellence.
We had a meeting in our last meeting, we like the officers and all that, congratulate our own Colonel Goddard as the vice chair nowadays. And that's pretty much it, that's pretty much our next step is, I'll be honest, this board, Colonel Goddard.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. The new chair of the board of ACE is Ms. Joyce Gerald from Jasper County. And we had a meeting, she and I met last week, and she wants to start a work session to talk about our ACE policy manual. I asked her to contact Ms. Cartledge and look at thinking they want to have their policy manual be somewhat similar to the Beaufort County policy manual as far as formatting and content concerned. And so she should be contacting Ms. Cartledge very soon. Today we had 2 completer ceremonies. We had completer ceremony for the Automotive Technology and Body Works, and this afternoon and this morning we had a completer ceremony for cosmetology and nail folks. And I have to tell you that it was very, very impressive to see those young people come up, get their cords. All their parents were there, and they gave out awards for the top student in each of the classes. Very exciting time, and they have more computer ceremonies tomorrow for other different classes. So very well done today. So I have to Chair.
Thank you.
And also the EMS.
Yes, it was today.
So that concludes the ACE committee reporting. Next up, we have Chair Kathy Robine of the academics.
Thank you. So the academic committee meeting has met twice since our last board meeting, November 29th and yesterday, December 13th. This evening, I'm just going to go over a few things from the November 29th meeting. We unanimously voted to move the following OEs to the consent agenda. 12.8, which is to ensure all instructional programs, both content and practices, are regularly evaluated and modified. OEs 12.2, base instruction on academic standards that meet or exceed state and or nationally recognized standards. OE 13.7, implement intervention strategies to improve discipline and reduce incidents. And OE 14.3, ensure all confidential student info is properly used and protected. Those are on the consent agenda today, and I hope that you had an opportunity to look at them. Our next meeting will be the last Wednesday in January. Thank you.
We now have here, Dr. Wojcicki reporting for the ad hoc Boston Bill Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My report is very brief. We had a meeting, on November 22nd. We went over our 45-day numbers and we have reporting available for all board members on those numbers for the Bluffton clusters. It was told to us that the current enrollment for Pritchardville and H.E. McCracken exceeds 100% building capacity. So that does trigger one of our OEs into where there's a recommendation that needs to move forward. And that was discussed at the meeting. And there are charts available within that document in Board Docs where you can see the 85% lines and the other projections. So I just encourage other board members to take a look at that because that will likely be triggering some board discussion. Our next meeting will be in January. We're not meeting at the end of this month. And we are going to be receiving some information from the county treasurer. She's going to come see us. She should have some information relative to the 4% numbers going to be assessed with us. So that is my update. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have the date of the January meeting?
It's typically the third Thursday in the month. Or last Thursday. It's the 27th, my apologies.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Continuing on, we have Chair Dick Guyer reporting on the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Finance Committee met on November 18th and December 9th. At that time, we reviewed and recommended for board approval OE 6-6 first quarter financial report. That motion was passed unanimously by the committee. OE 6.1.8 financial administration, which is primarily the audit, and you will be receiving the audit briefing later in the meeting today. It was also recommended for approval by unanimous vote. And lastly, OE 18, food and nutrition services. That OE was also approved for recommendation of the full board. It's on the consent agenda, but it will be brought up based on Mr. Smith's request. I'm not sure when our next finance meeting is. Do you? I don't know when it is. We'll get that. But that's all I have to report, man.
Okay, so let's cover the OE 18 food and nutrition services, since this was brought forward by the Finance Committee to be on the consent agenda and has been pulled off the consent agenda. So Mr. Smith.
In terms of 18.
Yes, operational expectation number 18.
Right, excellent. And in terms of 18.7, superintendent shall monitor the cost of the program. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I have been talking to a lot of students lately, and they have been saying that the choices that they would normally have, that they don't have those choices now, and that not only that they won't have the food, but the choices were it was more equal, or it was just strictly this and that. And I do remember these actual staff coming in forward and saying that they were short some employees, and that there were certain also that they could not possibly get at times. And so with that being said, I know that we're paying to Dexter a a certain variety. How, in terms of how are we doing with the contract in terms of, or how are we paying my workers? Are we paying my meals? Because if the kids used to get meals and the money's allocated for choices, then how are we maintaining and how are we monitoring that? Because that's a concern, because I mean, the kids are really wondering that the food is basically just one particular item that they can get versus them having sandwiches and hot food. And so, could you tell us what the process of that is?
Ms. Crosby?
Yes, good evening. The meal contract, the food and nutrition contract that the district it follows from the state nutrition office is required to be on a per meal basis at a standard rate, and I believe that rate is $3.18 per meal. We typically serve about 3 million meals per year. And so that rate does not fluctuate based on the amount of options available for students. It's something we've been battling most of this year, and that is the labor and supply chain shortages. I think we've talked about this a couple of times recently, but the availability of our food, the menu options that we're seeing out in the community are affecting our food service program as well. So we continue to work with our vendors to get the best and the availability of certain items that our students like to have and have recommended or have requested. And so we'll continue to work on that throughout the year, but we'll continue to work heavily on that throughout the year.
But I hear what you're saying, Ms. Crosby, but it's still concerned, that's still like also answering, how are we monitoring the cost of this point in terms of what schools are actually giving out versus what they're not giving out? Because a couple of weeks ago, I was called and said that one of our schools ran a lunch. So they ran a lunch, then how are we monitoring that? And I mean, obviously, what you said is if we pay for it, then what's the process?
Okay. Tim Green is joining us now. He's connecting to the audio, but I know he didn't hear the question that you posed to the group, or to me. So I'll fill him in as he's logging in. And Ms. Edwards will be joining us as well. So we monitoring the costs as we make purchases for food. We're constantly comparing major vendors that we're using, and so costs are compared, and the availability is a big factor in that. Mr. Green, you're joining us here, and I hate to put you on the spot, but we have some questions.
Join the meeting.
Mr. Smith has requested information about the process of monitoring costs of the program relating to the supply of food, the labor costs as well. Are you on and available to respond?
Yes, in just 1 second.
All right. He's not quite fully logged in here this evening, so we will provide a response. I certainly we can research the information you're requesting, and we can follow up with that at a future meeting.
Tanya, I'm on.
Mr. Crosby, he's on. He is now joined us, and I believe he wants to respond.
Go ahead, Mr. Green.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sorry about that, guys. Just got in. So, Tanya, I just caught the very end of that.
Okay. Mr. Green, I believe Mr. Smith's question is in relation to if meals are unavailable or unprovided, is really what he's asking about. And he's asking about the contract with respect to requirements for providing the food and meals are not available. How do we work through that? I think that's what Mr. Smith is asking, Ms. Prosper. How do we monitor that? I'm sorry. That's what he's asking. It's how we monitor that our meals are being served.
Okay, so meals are provided based on projections of the amount of students that come through, or at this point in time, teachers and schools give us the amount of people that we are preparing for. Then as they come through the line, we check them off, or if the meals are being delivered, they are checked off and monitored that way through the USDA program.
His question, I think, was also in relation to a particular school that a constituent reached out to him and said that they had run out of meals.
Okay, what school would that be?
Beaufort High School.
Be honest with you, I just was with the manager there, and I have not heard of us running out of meals there. I know that we had one day we had an issue at Battery Creek, and I can speak to that. But the teachers, I guess Mr. Jackson was supposed to be in charge of that, and he had moved to a different school. And normally, what we do is they give us an amount of meals to prepare because those are being delivered to the schools, to the classrooms. And they ended up having, when they passed the meals out, there were more students had gotten meals than what was requested. So, we were preparing the amount of meals that we have, generally do about 5% over to account for that. But this particular day, I don't know what the situation was and how that happened. But, there were more kids that ate than requested the meals.
Mr. Green, what I understand you're saying is that as you work through, when you have an issue like that you take that into account and then you adjust moving forward?
Yeah, absolutely. Every time that we have a situation, we keep records of what meal, what day, and then we adjust the numbers. So when we first started, we were somewhere right around 500 meals at Battery Creek. I'm just going to use that as the example. And we're up to 580 meals, which we know we prepare about 560 is what the meal is, but we do 580 to account for the overage.
Thank you.
In terms of what I heard, I'm still concerned. My question too was so when we have those situations that take place, like I was told it happened in high school, how do we take care of it? What's the process? If we have students that we don't do, what will be the B plan? How and also and we thing that concern with that is that if we give the funding, then who would give the students the meals, and what would that process look like?
Well, in the situation where we were short, I think we were short 5 meals one time. Because we actually are preparing those meals at Robert Smalls because that kitchen is unavailable at Battery Creek. As soon as there's a request that, there were more meals taken than were requested, then the team scurries back and makes 5 more meals and brings them back. So the meals may be late, but again, the meals are being requested at this point in time. So we are preparing the amount and a few over, but there are those days where, or a day or so that the kids will, tend to eat more, or, whether or not they were passed out correctly, or somebody in the classroom, say a classroom asks for 10, but they take 15 meals when we get to the door. because, you know, it could be for the meal or somebody just decided that they wanted one. You know, we do the best we can. On the other hand of that, you know, you've got food waste. So if we're preparing for, you know, 400 kids and 100 kids do not eat, that would not be, you know, advantageous to the school or to, you know, how we actually are feeding the kids. So, you know, the goal is for us to forecast and prepare a few meals extra. And then if we get to the situation that we need meals, we go ahead and prepare those. Most of the schools do have their kitchens that are up and running. So if there is a shortage, for the most part, if they go back and to the manager and say we're 10 meals short, we prepare those meals. We don't not prepare those meals. But the communication has to be given to us that they need more meals. But if somebody's not getting to us and just said, well, we ran out, or you know, they passed out all the meals, and they don't request them for us to prepare more, then, you know, that would be something that we would find out after the fact.
I think that to that point, one of the most effective ways to be as responsive to the scenario or situation as quickly as possible is want to make sure that the school administration is notified quickly. So if you're hearing from a parent that's calling you, we need to ask that parent to connect with our school principal immediately so that we can, you know, take action to correct that as quickly as possible. If you're hearing it, you know, I would request that you let me know when you hear, so that way we can take action as quickly as possible. But if you hear it and we don't know, you know, then it's difficult for them to respond to if they're not.
Yeah, and anytime we do have a situation, most of the times we do get communication through the principals if there is any sort of need that they may see, whether, you know, portion size, they want to see a bigger portion size, or there's a question about, you know, the nutrition through the nurses or whatever. All of that generally comes through the school, and we're very reactive, whether to get the nutritionist out there or even have a communication or a visit by myself or someone else in the team to make sure that we are preparing and feeding the kids the proper meals that they need.
And I'll just close with that. Actually, it was not only was it just also on social media. Parents were saying that they were calling up there. Parents were calling the district office. So I'm sure that the parents were calling enough, but they trust me. Parents just don't call me as a board sometimes. Parents do call, and when parents call me, then I redirect them to call the district office, and I redirect them to call the school, and let the administration know about that too. So yeah, I do. When parents call me, I do redirect them to call the person who should be dealing with those situations. So I believe that the school district and the principal of the school was called, and it was a lot of press on social media, and last board meeting, it was said here that I guess everyone here was watching the social media. We were talking about parents and people in the community putting on social media about the cafeteria food. So I do want to say that everyone is looking at social media and understanding that. So I just want to let them know that I believe that those particular people were contacted due to the situation.
And I would just ask if you have personal knowledge, you know, email me, call me, talk to me, because I'll immediately connect with Ms. Crosby, who will immediately connect with Mr. Green, and we can get the ball rolling.
All right, would any board member like to make a motion for this particular OE? Go ahead.
I think you guys just let me do it for entertainment, but here we go. I move that the Board of Education accept the monitoring report for OE 18 food services.
Dr. Nasty?
I'll second.
Ms. Rowland? Oh, sorry, you're down. Mr. Smith?
I was going to say my conclusion, you know, also I visited the schools. On Friday, there was a student council well branch, and I was able to talk to some of those students, and they voiced their opinions in terms of food. And I also at the meeting, Colonel Guy was saying as well that that he had went to several schools with, Dr. Rodriguez and the students were talking about the food, and I just reiterated what he said, Dr. Rodriguez was reiterating, at the other meeting, and I just want to say that, if we're hearing these kids talk about the food, you know, we have to set a bar, you know, I understand that there's a problem in terms of getting food, but at the same time, if we, like the kids said, we set a bar for them, then at some point, we have to set a bar for the nutrition in the food department. So, you know, that you know, I would say, and sometimes some people don't like it, but, you know, at some point in time, so that's what we have to chew up on the walk at the same time, because these kids can't, these are some of the only meals these kids have. So we can't keep not giving these kids meals that they see that as something that they will want to even eat. You know, so I just want to put it out there. And then still some questions. I'm still concerned about some money, so I can't answer tonight. Unfortunately, I cannot support this motion. Thank you.
All right, go to the open.
Is that right?
Okay, just maybe you said you were voting no, but it says yes. Next up, we have Ms. Fisher, Chair of the Operations Committee. And you could also part of the operational expectations that were pulled in your report.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Wise. The Operations Committee met 3 times in December, the 1st, the 7th, and the 10th. And unlike Dr. Wisniewski, I can't guarantee this will be a short report. So the first thing on December, we met, we had a fabulous presentation by the principal of Roberts Falls International Academy. You see a motion right here on the agenda. And this motion to bring forward to the full board was unanimous from the Operations Committee. And I asked Principal Terrence if he could be here and explain the reasoning behind Roberts Falls International Academy seeking to change their name to Roberts Falls Leadership Academy. I think once you hear the reasons and the input from the faculty, staff, community, alumni, and so on, that you will see how appropriate this is. So, Mr. Terrence, would you mind giving the whole board a little background on this?
Absolutely. Thank you, board. Thank you, execs. As a school improvement council and alumni association whose children attend Roberts Falls International Academy, we'd like the board to consider changing the name of our school to reflect the leadership of our namesake. Currently, our school is named as an international school. However, our new focus is on leadership with a global perspective. I know that the school board is committed to the development of all of our children with an emphasis on leadership development, cultural diversity, and equality for all learners. Approving this name change would align with the values and mission of our school district. There are several benefits to the modification of this name. First being, the school will have a focus of leadership development based on our namesake, Roberts Falls. This also allows the district and school to create a development program that matches our overall core beliefs of leader in me and philosophy of our school and district. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, we'll let me know.
There are no hands up, and thank you, Principal Terrence.
Mr. Terrence, would you mind, one question that was brought up was someone did ask why we might be considering this now, and at what point might this name change occur?
Absolutely. We're considering this now because we've broken ground on the new building and we are starting to purchase new items for that new building. We would like to be able to purchase the items that would reflect the name change to Roberts Falls Leadership Academy. We would hope to not officially start calling it Roberts Falls Leadership Academy until we begin that school year 2023. So we would not have to take any fiscal responsibility of changing any current signs that are there, but just for the brand new building.
Okay, thank you, sir. Greatly appreciate that. And so with that, I
got one question.
She can continue.
I'm finished.
She has the floor. She can continue, and you can still ask your question after her.
Okay.
Go ahead. Okay, so I was just going to go ahead and, Chair's going to make that motion, but if, make the motion now. Okay, so I proudly make the motion to recommend to the full, to recommend that the full board approve the name change of Robert Smalls International Academy to Robert Smalls Leadership Academy at the request of the parents and alumni community, and acknowledging it will maintain the historical significance of Robert Smalls in its name.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead and ask the question.
And my question will be to the principal. Did you Robert Smalls alumni chapter represent change?
Yes, I met with a couple of alumni. I wasn't able to meet with all of them. They were all in full support of this. I also met with Ms. Charlotte Brown was at the groundbreaking, and she reiterated her support for this as well.
Thank you. Thank you. I do appreciate you for doing that, because I know in the past that some people have had that concern, and I appreciate you having some full support of this motion. And I thank you for taking the time out of your personal time to engage the community. I appreciate you and honor to you for that. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, voting is open.
I'm doing this. Sorry, mine's been very slow tonight. I'm sorry. Thanks for asking.
The motion for the name change, is unanimous, and the principal Karen said that will go into effect in, the fall of 2023. So the, current school will not have to change, signage, so. Congratulations, Principal Terrence. And thank you so much for coming this evening, and a lot for you to present that. Appreciate it. Please go ahead.
Just wanted to say thank you one more time. Reaching out to the community was very important to make sure that they had a strong say in this. And we do believe that we will be changing and honoring Robert Smalls' leadership in not just our community, but also in the United States. Look out for Robert Smalls leaders coming your way. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item that we have on the agenda is the construction update. I do want to let fellow board members know that this will be the third time that this construction update is reviewed. I trust everybody on the board has reviewed it. It went through operations committee, went through the clock committee just last week. So I've asked Mr.
David Grissom. Joined the meeting.
I've asked Mr. Corbett if he would please give the highlights on the construction update, and he will be prepared to ask any questions that you may have when you previewed the documents prior to this meeting. Thank you. Mr. Corbett.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to provide the executive summary for the construction updates. Good overall progress continues to take place with the referendum projects. We have seen long lead times for construction materials continue to be encountered as a result of the COVID supply chain challenges and issues, but I'm real pleased to report that the project managers are doing an excellent job of finding solutions for these challenges when they arise. Contained in the report are some yellow traffic lights that have been previously reported for budget and or schedule related concerns for Hilton Head Island, SCA, Bluffton Elementary, and ECC, as well as H.E. McCracken Middle School. It's anticipated that these concerns will be resolved in December. The yellow traffic light that we've been reporting and monitoring for Hilton Head Island Middle School continues to be included in the monthly report. The section for the project closeouts is reporting 3 projects where closeouts have been completed. And in that same section, you'll see that we're also very close with completing closeouts for 7 additional projects. Included in the monthly report for this time is our new cash flow model that you heard me speak of last month. With that new cash flow model now issued, we've begun coordinating with the district financial services for when the next bond sale will also take place, and that's scheduled to occur in the middle of next year, 2022. And the last items I'd like to include for the executive summary are related to community outreach. We did hold the Robert Smalls International Academy groundbreaking that took place on December 7th. And following today's Hilton Head Island Middle School Administration and School Improvement Council project updates, we will now turn our focus to coordinating a community meeting for that project that'll take place in January. And with that, that'll conclude my executive summary, and I'll be glad to field any questions that there may be.
Thank you, Mr. Corbin. Dr. Wisniewski?
I was just gonna say, I think the executive summary is a new document, correct, that we're doing or using on the construction updates? Is it this one pager?
Right.
I was just gonna say thank you for this. I think it helps to streamline things, it makes it very concise, and it gives me kind of a where to kind of look for highlights, and I appreciate it, thank you.
There was a lot of discussion on, the fact that many board members have heard in the operations committee, many were at clock meeting, and that wasn't really necessary to go through the whole thing. So, Mr. Corbin, I want to applaud you and thank you for that executive summary. I think it's a move forward, and greatly appreciate it. And just to make sure everybody knows that really the construction update has gone through with a fine-tooth comb during operations committee. So, Mr. Corbin, I guess there, we do have Ms. Boatright.
I know. And I completely agree with Dr. Wisniewski. I think this is amazing. The other thing I wanted to say to board members who haven't had a chance, possibly, or the public, that new cash flow projection you have, I found to be really, really helpful. It's a new tool in addition to the amendment tracking and the contingency log. So there's a lot of transparent and very detailed analysis that's done every month by your staff. And I think that the new ones, like I said, it's very helpful. So if anyone needs more information, it is all there and all laid out. And I appreciate it very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Corbin.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
And Dr. Watts, lastly, the committee has several OEs to bring forward on the consent agenda. OE1, OE2, OE3, OE4. OE1, 2, and 3, as you can tell when you reviewed the materials, were a superintendent's interpretation. OE4 was a monitoring report. Mr. Smith has pulled OE10 and OE15, and then still on the consent is OE11. So I guess at this time, Mr. Smith, if you would like to discuss OE10.
Actually, in terms of the communication with the board, one of my questions were, there are times when we get, basically get, messages, or we basically get emails that telling us different things that are going on in the district. In terms of the communication, I was kind of, there's a lot of time when we get certain things and we get charged with them, telling us that there's maybe something going on at the school, and we may still have questions. I'm not sure about other board members, you know, some people, they may not want to know, you know, but as board members, I get a question, they're writing an email about situations. I'd like to know that it was a resolve to it, not being just basically the particulars of it. But there sometimes, majority of the time, the communication director will email back and said that security is investigating, and that they will, and basically that's it. But there was a situation that came before the board in the last hearing that we had, and there were questions that concerned me and things that I've been hearing in the community, and looking at, and it seemed something that we saw, it did concern me with the information that we received. It concerned the information that we received not to the particular of it, but in terms of how it comes to resolution. So that's really why I pulled this OE. It actually might have been wrong, it might have been the other one, but that's basically my situation.
Ms. Boatright.
Thank you. We did have this conversation in operation.
Right.
And what Mr. Smith was concerned about, we had a conversation about it with Mr. Grissom, was, and I don't want to paraphrase, so tell me if I'm wrong, but as I understood it, the follow-up after the notification that things, the resolution is what you were talking about. Does that sound right?
There was kind of two of them that day. I don't know if this one was not with Mr. Grissom. I think this one was Dr. Green, I think, yeah.
My question was because I've sensed, we have all the lockdowns and whatnot going on, and I think it might be useful to just have a brief conversation about when law enforcement gets involved, that there's a little bit of a different protocol.
One, when law enforcement gets
I don't
involved,
think
there's.
your speakers on.
Can you hear me?
Oh, much better.
Yeah, okay. Just gotta get- All right, when law enforcement gets involved, there's limited information that I can give you, right? So, because we don't want to get in the middle or interfere with a law enforcement investigation. And so we try to give you information to give you a sense of what the situation is. And that's essentially where it is, because as law enforcement has to investigate, sometimes they don't close anything out. And that investigation is ongoing. Sometimes they close it out, but then there's more that goes on beyond that, right? So my objective is to ensure that the board receives information about what's happening, but also when it relates to a significant organizational concern, right? Not every little thing that happens out there, right? And I don't think that's in the weeds, and I don't think that's where you want to be. So we want to try to give you information on the significant issues that give you a sense of what's going on. Is something that is helpful for you. But when there's law enforcement investigations, we're limited in what we can say. And we're actually told oftentimes,
Well, and if you don't mind me following up, that's what I learned with the events at Hilton Head.
Sure.
Was that was a law enforcement, and it will tell, they dictate the terms, and it's not a school board policy or a school policy, it is, they're taking the point, and I think that's important for the public to understand.
Correct. Yeah.
Mr. Earl Campbell,
I agree with you. I agree with Dr. Rodriguez. Law enforcement, sometimes it takes them months for the investigation goes. And they're not required to tell you what is going on. They don't. And they're going to not do it. So I hope that you understand that. They have different laws, policy than this board has. A lot of times, they do it because they don't want their case to get messed up. That's the reason why they do what they do.
Dr. Wisniewski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, so I got asked this question actually last night at a POA meeting. Someone from the audience, you know, what's going on with that? Has there been a resolution? Is that basically put? Is it done? Having to do with the threats from my bathroom walls. And I explained to them the trend and yada yada, that it's being investigated by law enforcement. So it's because we've seen such a high incidence of these now recently, it's become even more of a public concern.
Sure.
So, I mean, I certainly understand when law enforcement gets involved, that'll be worked through. But if there is any of those, and I think Candace has been, or Dr. Greer, excuse me, has been doing a great job at letting us know that someone has been apprehended on certain instances. I just assume, which could be incorrect, that the rest of them are still being worked through. But I just want to offer that, because it is something I'm getting asked up there. Is that done? Are we past that?
That is correct. I also, by the way, intended to talk a little bit about the superintendent's report, but essentially, to answer the question, yes, they continue to investigate, they keep it open. And these are, since we're talking about the threats, these are matters that we take very, very seriously, right? And we will hold students accountable. We will hold them accountable, and law enforcement will hold them accountable. That behavior needs to cease immediately, because we deploy an enormous amount of resources. Law enforcement deploys an enormous amount of resources always to make sure that our schools are safe places of learning. And that's the way we want to keep it, right? And so that's not, if they're doing it as a prank, it's not fun. And it's going to be, people will be held accountable.
Mr. Nelson.
Well, yeah, I mean, discussion is fine. I think the topic is really, do we agree or disagree with how Dr. Rodriguez interprets that OE? And I'm comfortable with the way he interprets it. Now, if he is not executing, that's a day for another discussion. But his interpretation is fine, what he should be doing. If he's not doing it, then when we evaluate, that's what we look at. So I think we need to move on.
Did you have a question?
I think you acknowledged Mr. Smith, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, I heard more people talking, I'm sure. Well, just to, actually to respond to what was, said, also, my question is not just about in question to, I would definitely ask you to obstruct justice, I would ask you to say, we're going forward, but at some point, I'm sure there are some resolutions, there are things that are being closed, that are being shared, in terms of just knowing that things are, how they're taken care of. It's just that the notion when you send out one email stating something, then to know that it's been closed or resolved or it's been handled and it's done. I think that's just correct. That's just a great point to know. And that would come from the district and not law enforcement. And by no means would I expect to have all the information that you sent, when you send us stuff, then you also send it to the senior staff and all the district employees, so then it goes out with a huge roll, so I would expect to have that information in there, but just something to know that, how that is being taken care of and not getting in the weeds. I mean, there was even to the terms of what Mr. Campbell just said, he himself commented in an article a couple of months ago and saying that, you know, because that answers, you know.
Chair. We're discussing the superintendent's interpretation. This is not a monitoring report. This is not evidence to say whether or not Dr. Rodriguez, the communication department, has completed or provided adequate. Now, this is strictly the interpretation. So I'd like to either get back to your problem, Mr. Smith, with the interpretation itself, not the evidence that either supports or denies this interpretation, you know, to say whether it's accepted. So can we move on to whether the interpretation is accepted, or do you have another concern about that?
I was saying what I was.
So point of order being that I think we're on topic. That's the point of order. Okay. So I'd like to make a motion. The board accept the superintendent's interpretation of OE 10 communicating with the board. I second that.
We have hands go down that don't need to speak now. All right, Mr. O'Campbell?
I just want to say that when the young lady sent us information, either the same day or the next day, she sent another email saying that everything was taken care of. But she sent us 2 emails today.
Never call point of order.
You know what? Mr. Smith, I'm ready to take a vote. Can we have a motion? Thank you, Mr. Otto.
Yep, we have a second already.
Second.
And so we're gonna,
Right, so
yeah,
up here.
so voting is over.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Goodrich, yes.
All right, Madam Chair.
Oh, yes, thank you. The motion. Oh, well, I was gonna, the superintendent's interpretation of OE 10 is accepted unanimously by the board. Ms. Goodrich.
Okay, thank you. The next item that was already on the consent agenda pulled by Mr. Smith is OE 15, safety and security annual monitoring report. Mr. Smith?
And then this monitoring report, am I understanding that we have canines going into schools in every school in our district? Is that what I'm understanding that has happened?
Mr. Smith.
While we're waiting for Mr. Grissom, I do believe in here that we were presented a chart that told us of the days that the canine units went into the school. Mr. Smith, you were in the operations committee, and I believe there's only one school that Mr. Grissom said at this time they were not able to do the canine checks. I guess the police department only does it on Wednesdays, if I understand it. And so we were given that chart. So is your question?
I don't see charge. I don't see. I don't see charge.
Okay, during the operations committee meeting, during the whole monitoring report, I remember because I asked why this one particular school had not had theirs yet.
Right. I mean, the school we typically asked about was right choices.
So are you asking about that same information?
No, I guess I'm asking about that same information, but I'm trying to understand that. I was also wondering about, well, Branch, someone said, from the Belfort Well Branch, she said, that Well Branch was on that list, as they had been checked.
It's a specific question about a specific school. That might be easier to answer than just asking, because you know that canines go into schools. And so that's why I was just addressing that question. Okay, I didn't realize you had a particular
Oh,
question.
yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Is Mr. Grissom on here?
Mr. Grissom, can you hear me? Can you unmute him by any chance?
I can ask to unmute.
And actually, while we're waiting on him, actually, Mr. Fridges, I had several parents that asked me that normal, or, do you know that, canine going to schools, and I just let the parents know that we, voting that we all were that they go to school, so some people are talking about with that. Just to put it out there.
Mr. Grissom's trying to unmute, but it won't allow him to unmute, so I'm gonna try and see if I can.
Come on, speaker.
Yeah. Mr. Grissom, can you hear me? Okay, the question from Mr. Smith is about canine searches at, Right Choices and at Whale Branch, Early College High School? Is that the question? And so his question is, are they scheduled? Are they scheduled? Is that the question?
Are they completed? There's one for Well Branch that one completed and done.
Is the one for Whale Branch completed and done? The canine searches?
Okay, well, now, along with the first, I was under the explanation, the understanding that the only one that we hadn't been done was Right Choices, and I was just became aware that, that Well Branch was not done. I was thought that I was told that it were done, so I just want to get for verification of that, that's all. Thank you. And then also, we also discussed the same, about students getting, I believe this is what we're about when students getting, searched, or students getting pulled out.
Okay, so wait a second, you have to raise your hand, and I just recognize Ms. Bishop. So Ms. Bishop, go ahead.
I was ready to make a motion to, accept OE 15, Safety and Security Annual Monitoring Report.
Ms. Bowman.
Second. Oh,
Second, okay. So I have a motion to accept, OE 15. Mr. Smith?
Also, we talked about, maybe if you remember too as well, that about students getting, questioned or officers coming on campus and investigating, different things that may happen off campus. And, Mr. Grissom, I believe he did try to, ask for that information. He did kind of bring that information, but I didn't have the time to look at it. And also checking this over the weekend, checking into that, I do believe that is something that I would like for more clarification. I don't remember exactly which, under what number in this policy that person was under. But with knowing that and allowing students to get questioned and under supervision, I can't support this motion because I do want to get clarification and a clear understanding on if that allowed and what that process and what that looks like.
So Ms. Bishop, would you like to address that, please?
I do want to say that Mr. Grissom, this question was asked by Mr. Smith during committee about the actual statute or the law that is in South Carolina about being able to question students, without their parents present. And I want to unequivocally say that Mr. Grissom responded the next day with information about that. But I just can't right now find it. So if Mr. Grissom, is he still online? Would he like to address that? But I just want to let you know that he responded immediately.
Yeah, so, thank you. So he did more than try, he actually executed on it. Mr. Grissom, this goes back to the question in operations about, law enforcement and questioning students. Would you like to, just talk about that for a minute?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Hang on.
Yeah, I'm gonna call on Mr. Stringer who has not spoken.
I didn't hear anything in that explanation that was any different than the information already supplied via email. So I'm getting a little tired of rehashing the same conversations that we already had, the same information that's already been supplied to the board. But if there's something different, let's get onto it and resolve that. Otherwise, I'm tired of this rehash of things, and I don't understand why we do it again. Mr. Grissom tried to give me the information. My understanding is you didn't want to see it. You told me we would for you. So.
Right, because he told me that. He told me that.
Right. And if that's your event, then pursue it, but you're wasting all of our time here rehashing this stuff. And we're not getting any new information, so, I mean, I understand you have an issue, pursue it, do your FOIA, whatever. And let's just not keep going over the same stuff over and over. Thank you.
All right, next is Ingrid Bowler.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I totally agree. And I also want to say that there were 5 attachments. Mr. Grissom's report I thought was very fulsome. And I guess they're not in our packet here, but in the operation committees, there were 5 additional attachments. Attachment 5, Mr. Smith, has every school and every lockdown, either data was performed or data is scheduled. So all that information is publicly available.
All right, next up, Dr. Wisniewski, you have spoken.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for the public's knowledge, this was a new OE that was adopted with our new policy manual. So I just wanted to thank everybody for their work that they put into this, because I know that this was new to the district, and I'm appreciative of all the information that's come forward. The only question I have is, because I did have the privilege to see previous monitoring reports on safety and security, is I believe, and I could be wrong on this, that there's a state reporting requirement when it comes to certain incidents, whether it's a firearm that's found at a school at night or something like that. And I didn't see it in here, but I could have missed it. So I'm just wondering, I believe I saw that in the previous report, so I'm wondering if that would be a part of this moving forward, or if that's gonna be in a different release somewhere else, or where I find that.
Mr. Grissom did you hear the question? The question is about the state report regarding, for example, firearms identified in schools. If that particular report if we brought that forward at the operations committee with this document, or if that part of an additional component to your you brought it's been brought forward in the past, I guess is what she's saying. Yeah, not for you to report it, but in terms of bringing a report as part of the OE like we've done in the past. I think it's one that we've done in the past, so I think it's something we do.
All of them?
Okay, Mr. Earl Campbell.
I just want to say that report in the past was presented by Student Services each year. Now, I'm going to say this, not because I have to read it all, so I know what I'm talking about. If any board member want to know about some of these questions that following, going to school and talking to a student conducting parents, go and sit down and talk with law enforcement. They will tell you what their procedures are, what the state procedures are. So obviously, we can't dictate to them how they do their jobs.
All right, Mr. Smith.
And just in terms of the statement I made, that some of these was already asked. Yes, I asked them, and also I was told that I could not take it. And everyone learns differently. Some people you might be telling me you do a document for 5 minutes, and the document I was told that you can look at the document, but you can't take the document, you can't do nothing with the document. I had someplace else I need to be, and I could not go to that document that quickly and understand it. So everyone learns differently. And there was something different because he just said, Mr. Scrivener, that he was going to give the document to the board differently. So we did learn something different. That now I will be able to see the document that he was talking about. Because theoretically, I knew nothing what the document said. At least I will play it because I now learned that when I need to see the document. And I need to be able to digest what I was reading. So I apologize for the way I learned, frustrated some of y'all.
All right.
The second thing is with in terms of what we learned in Newsday also, also was that we were told that all the schools were done, which that was incorrect because they said that when the school was scheduled, we were thinking as a committee, the only school that was not church was the right choices. But I was community speaking and talking about what I already talking about how serious these threats are. That's when someone told me, they corrected me, talked to me and said, no, well, the college was not having a dog there yet. And so that's why I wanted to just see and get a clear understanding. So that information was what we had was not accurate. So please. Voting open.
Carl?
Mr. Earl Campbell, your vote. All right, the safety and security OE 15 monitoring report is approved, 10-1. Mr. Smith is the now, and Dr. Wozniacki.
I was just gonna add, Dr. Rodriguez, that data that I was looking for, the state DOE has it titled as the Persistently Dangerous Schools Report.
Okay.
It's broken out by, it's the type of incident, and it's also a bullying incident report as well, but,
Thank
so it might be found somewhere else.
Thank you.
Ms. Bitters, does that conclude your report? Okay, thank you. Next up is, Chair David Sturgeon with Technology Committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Technology Committee, there's nothing to bring before the board that we can debate or improve. But we are focused on two main things. One is parent and student access, making sure that the bandwidth is there and it's being used. And also on a review, there is an RFP out for a review of our strategic plan, our technology strategic plan, which we want to develop confidence in. So that's been our focus.
Thanks.
Yep, everybody agrees. And that's our next meeting, which will be in January. We are going to revisit the OE and see if we can distill it like everyone else is.
All right, thank you. That concludes the report for technology. Thank you. Next up on our agenda is the superintendent's report. Dr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Dr. Watts. This evening in the superintendent's report, we'll begin with student achievement presentation. Dr. Bradley is going to share continuous improvement PLC work. We've spoken a lot about the continuous improvement model. At the very beginning of that model, begin with planning, then it goes to actual instruction, then it goes to monitoring the impact of instruction, and then it goes to remediation or acceleration based on the data that comes from it. So today, we've shared with you our work around instructional reviews. Today, we're sharing with you our work around planning component in terms of professional learning indicators. Go ahead.
Legal board, Madam Chair, members of the board. To Dr. Rodriguez's point, we've spent a good deal of time this year talking about continuous improvement and the importance of providing rigorous standards-based instruction for all of our students. Now, there's a lot that goes into that process, but nothing is more important to us than making sure that we are exposing our teachers and our school leaders to research-based practices and strategies that are known to improve student outcomes for students. Next slide, please. So early this fall, we introduced, and I think to a certain extent, we reintroduced something called professional learning communities to our schools. By definition, professional learning communities are groups of educators who meet regularly and in recurring cycles to do things like share expertise, analyze student work, plan instruction, among other things. Last spring, when we polled our principals, a great majority of them responded that they already had some semblance of professional learning communities already in place in their buildings. But when we probed a bit deeper, we found that the philosophies, the structures, and the executing practices being used at schools varied significantly and needed to be tweaked. The thought was that if we were going to achieve maximum results, we needed to ground ourselves in a common approach informed by the nation's foremost authority in professional learning communities and the practice of implementing professional learning communities within schools. Next slide, please. That person is Dr. Richard Beaufort. And I really only mention his name this evening because district-wide, we make constant reference to Dr. Beaufort's research and all of the corresponding books that he has produced. And so we ground everything that we do with regard to professional learning communities and connect it to Dr. Beaufort's research. The very essence of a professional learning community is collaboration. And you probably know that the era of the isolated teacher that works alone to try to meet the needs of students is really neither sustainable nor is it effective. And so as a consequence, the central idea behind PLCs is intentional collaboration, providing opportunities for teachers to coalesce around common professional objectives. And that's important because Dr. Beaufort has found that when teachers operate in silos, wholesale organizational objectives are difficult, if not impossible, to meet. And plus, as you all know, this work is just simply too hard to be done alone. PLCs, according to Dr. Beaufort, have 3 big ideas. The first is a focus on learning. The second is a collaborative culture of collective responsibility. And the third, a results orientation. In summarizing these big ideas, if done correctly, professional learning communities in their purest form will center on systems that bring people together to improve their practice with a clear focus on improved student outcomes. Next slide, please. Now, there's a lot that can be done with teachers when they come into a professional learning community. Some of that talk, as you can imagine, can be productive, and some of that dialogue can be unproductive. And so Dr. Beaufort subscribes to the notion that at the end of the day, the time spent within professional learning communities should really seek to resolve 4 specific questions. The first and the most important is, what do we want students to know and be able to do? The second is, how will we know that they learned it? The third is, how will we respond when they don't learn it? And the fourth is, how will we extend and enrich student learning for students who have already consumed the necessary knowledge? And if you spend any time in our kind of reworked professional learning communities, you'll find that all of the dialogue that happens in those meetings are centered around those 4 primary inquiries. What you'll notice from the slide is that for each of these inquiries, there are also resources and systems that we take responsibility for making sure are in place. So for example, we can't begin to hold teachers accountable for student learning unless they've been provided with all of the necessary and critical resources necessary to deliver instruction, like curriculum and pacing guides and scope and sequence, all of the things that Dr. Stratos and the instructional services team has already prepared and provided for our teachers. Next slide, please. We've also developed a very simple success matrix for our principals. And as you can see, professional learning communities are at the very heart of that work. The idea is that when district-provided resources are in place at the top, when schools and teachers intentionally plan and deliver their instruction, that the likelihood of delivering standards-based instruction is significantly improved. And we believe that all of that work begins within the PLC. Next slide, please. So I want to spend a little bit of time on this slide because we have some very specific goals for professional learning communities this year, recognizing that as we reintroduced PLC for many of our schools, all of them were really essentially starting at different places. So we're not just hoping and wishing that systems of collaboration are in place. We're being explicit around what is actually expected within those professional learning communities. The goal for us is not to simply have PLCs, but for them to be implemented at a high level and with fidelity. So this year, we are focusing on 2 elements of the PLC, design and implementation. And we prescribed the quality standards for each. This year, the goal is for every school to be at foundational, which you can see in pink. And over time, we want to see schools progress to deep execution. So if you can imagine, for both design and implementation, you have a scaffolded, progressive process that we hope to be able to monitor for schools as they continue to implement best practices with regard to professional learning communities. Next slide, please. And so as I close, you should know that we are not just leaving our schools by themselves in the rollout of this work. The Instructional Services Division, content coordinators, and executive directors have been deployed to provide focused check-ins and coaching. We're also working as a district team to make certain that we are constantly improving and increasing our collective knowledge around professional learning communities as well. And as I mentioned before, the expectation for us this year is to reintroduce professional learning communities to each of our schools to support their continued growth and development. And hopefully over time, we all get to deep execution But at the end of this year, the hope is for us to all be at foundational with regard to design and implementation. And I'm happy to report that schools are making really, really good progress, and some of them have already exceeded the expectations for foundational execution. With that, I'll take any questions you have.
Colonel Guyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair, and Dr. Bradley. I'm a linear thinker, and so I like this logical, progressive, and sequential approach. I have a concern. We need universal application across the district, no doubt about it. My concern is we don't want to stifle individual principals' innovation on how they achieve this. So I hope we have a broad enough scope for the principals to innovate and, of course, share what works and what doesn't work as we go through this.
Well, so first of all, it's a great question, and it's one that comes up in our leadership meetings quite often. What we try to do is we try to make sure that we're exposing our principals to what the research says are the best practices to produce results. But we've also said that we're going to honor the context and the environment that is present within your buildings. So we have principals that some of them offer professional learning communities 2 times a week for 90 minutes. We have others that don't necessarily do that, because we want to obviously make sure that they are implementing these best practices in a context that fits for their respective school communities. But it is our responsibility to make sure that we expose them to what the research says and implement those practices to the best of their ability. And so yes, we most certainly give them the flexibility that they need.
Thank you, and just one final thing. We don't want to have program du jour here. That's what we've had in this district, in my understanding, for a number of years. We need a program that's going to be sustained and sustained for the long term. I'm talking 10, 12 years, because every time somebody new comes in, some doctor publishes a book, and you go to some conference and you come back with the latest shiny penny. We can't afford that anymore. We've got to stick to one system, please. That to me is the key. I think you're on the right track. I really do. And the instructional reviews that I have monitored are fabulous. And the way it's being accepted, fabulous. Let's not screw it up. I keep changing, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, Dr. Wisniewski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I echo what Colonel Guyer said about sticking with something. My question is in regard to the core teachers that are organized in their meaningful teams. How do we, and obviously it's going to take time to implement and to get rocking, but my question is, how do we make sure that those core members of those teams are also communicating outside of just their school? Is there going to be organized meetings of all of those core members of the district office so that we're spreading that knowledge of how from one school to the other?
So, Dr. Wisniewski, one of the things I often say is, when I'm looking for principal leadership, right? One of the things that's so important is not just that you did a good job and that you have your experiences to talk about when you're in, but it's something you've worked on, proliferated beyond just your particular school. That's, in my opinion, my level, right? Now, what we do have regularly organized are on a monthly basis. We have meetings, one here at the district, but then we have one that is at schools that our executive directors lead. And part of that is what we call instructional rounds. So if you're in the medical profession, you are, you probably had to do not instructional rounds, but had to do rounds through that process, right? Instructional rounds allows, for example, our principals
to visit each other's schools during that meeting, right? They are at a different site at another school. They do instructional rounds where they visit classrooms, they can look at PLCs taking place. Don't forget, in the continuous improvement model, planning is at the front end, right? That's critical. PLCs help in that planning process, right? That's what we look for. And so it's an opportunity to see and share how PLCs are functioning and working in different schools. You get a chance to take a look at that. So that, to your point about seeing what's working, where it's working well, and proliferating, that's what's built into that second principal meeting with the executive director and their cohort schools, where they get a chance to see what's happening in each other's schools. And I think that's part of what you're asking.
Can I just a brief follow-up? So just to make sure that I'm clear, so in that model though, the core members it would have to funnel up to their leader at their school and have to funnel up to the principal in order for it to get shared. What I was kind of asking was, is there something on a larger scale for all of those PLCs, or at least maybe the leader from the MAP PLC at each school or something, to come together and share those outside of it just being on the leaders' shoulders?
And I think that is that. So two things. At the moment, the way that gets shared, what's happening within a PLC, so to speak, is through our executive directors who attend PLCs as well as they're looking at the fidelity and the work around PLCs, right? But one of the things that we are looking at is how we engage instructional leaders from different schools, from different grade levels, or from department chairs at the secondary levels on a more district-wide level where they can come together and have that space to have those conversations. Anything else you want to add to that?
Just at the portfolio meetings that Dr. Rodriguez mentioned, they're new this year, but they have been incredibly beneficial, particularly for our principals to be able to go into other schools and see what's happening within those buildings, extract best practices, and then use them to the extent that they can or need to or want to, and take them back into their own buildings. And so it's an opportunity for them to collaborate. It's kind of like the principal professional learning community that happens on a monthly basis. And again, it's been a powerful practice for us this year that are obviously led by our executive directors.
Thank you.
Ms. Goodrich? Thank you, Dr. Bradley. To Colonel Geyer's comment about the program du jour, this is certainly not a program du jour in Beaufort County School District. This has been, professional learning communities have probably been here for a decade. Right, on Richard DeFore's work. Right. I mean, so I'm glad to hear you say that this is the reinvented PLC. Because again, Dr. Bradley, we wouldn't be in the position where we are with scores if the PLCs of the past 10 years have really worked. So it's the fidelity to the program. I believe in this program. I believe in DeFore's work. But the basic concern I have when we talk about these core teams is the protected time for teachers to really do this. 90 minutes. Not being that PLC trumps things. But with our shortage of teachers, our lack of substitutes, I'm concerned that the fidelity to this model, once again, is not going to be true. And you're not going to have those teachers that are needed to make the PLCs work, because it's the strategies, it's the analysis of student work that's occurring in those PLCs that's going back into the classroom. We can have our principals talk about it, we can have our executive directors, which is a nice addition, which I think is going to definitely help with fidelity, but it's having those teachers always present with their minds present and not torn a million different ways to make it happen. And how are you going to do that? How are you going to do that so that finally DeFore's work will show us some benefits and productivity?
So, I mean, I think in many ways, this is a reintroduction to PLCs to our district. We have some schools that are already rocking and rolling and have been for years. Many of our TAP schools immediately said, we've been doing this, and so we wanted to be able to support them. But I think at the end of the day, the common message that we share with our principals is that we also understand that we are still trying to navigate COVID. And we also understand that there are operational challenges that are presented within buildings. So if there's anything that we present to schools that functionally cannot be implemented this year, we say take care of your people first. We're not trying to disrupt school communities by trying to expose or introduce new practices. This is a progressive process, and we even know that by the end of this year, going into next year, we still may very well have schools that are at different places. The expectation is that over time, we make sure that that the fundamental foundational pieces of professional communities are in place. But if there is something that doesn't work because of limitations that are in place within buildings, we give principals the absolute autonomy to run their buildings how they see fit. And then we provide strategic supports to the extent that we can.
And so I would anticipate then that those challenges that principals and instructional leaders and executive directors are having implementing these in the schools, those challenges will be addressed for the following year, hopefully.
That's
right?
correct. So absolutely. So some of them are just logistical challenges, right? So some schools simply cannot implement the Forest model of professional learning communities because their schedules don't allow for them, right? So as we are going into scheduling season and budgeting season, that's where we step back and we say, all right, we've already identified PLCs as a critical component for improving student outcomes within your building. How do you reset your school structure and your model to make sure that those practices are in place so that it can be honored with fidelity in the upcoming school? Yeah. And so the great thing is that those principals simply don't have to do that work alone. We have an army of people here at the district office that will work with them shoulder to shoulder and side by side to make sure that it can happen.
Next is Campbell.
I'm almost too old to be engaged in this discussion. PLCs. I mean, I like kind of guys that like, we can reinvent that wheel as many times. It amounts to collaborative teaching, and it amounts to site-based management too, because unless the principals buy into the whole attitude of PLCs, it's not going to happen. And unless you allow flexibility for the scheduling of teachers' meetings, it's not going to happen. I mean, we're going to stop, and then there are going to be some other people come in. And the other element of it is the consistency of keeping that staff intact so that we're not retraining new people in those PLCs. There's so much stuff there. I mean, I don't want to discourage it because it is fundamental. But if you synchronize it too much, if you make it such a template until everybody has to follow the same cookie cutter, it's not going to happen for the particular school that you're looking for it to happen at. So, despite, the outline, enormous amount of flexibility have to be used, especially knowing this county the way I know it. In order to get it to work, you gotta have as many different designs as you probably have. Plus,
well, I think
that's something that I admire the approach, and I know Frank is looking to be here 20 years to get it done. So, but that's what it's gonna take.
You brought up some of the very realities, right, that we're dealing with and that we're going to deal with. There's no doubt about it, right? And I don't care what district in the country you go to, at the end of the day, it comes down to the things
that you have so well articulated in around that. But flexibility, you want to have, right? You want to have the core expectation around PLCs. You want your leader on the ground to have the flexibility to initiate it and drive it within their buildings, within the unique DNA of their building, right?
Yeah.
And you have to fight the barriers that exist to getting teachers the opportunity to, and that is why, at its very reality, when we look at this sort of a rubric around core principles around it, we're trying to be realistic and understand that as they work through it right now, they've got these barriers that they're facing and challenging, right? And to the extent that we can support them on breaking down those barriers, we will. To the extent that it requires them to look further to get to a higher level within those core concepts, that may be a design of a schedule. That may be a design of those types of things that may be needed to execute on it, right? I think that's the reality. That's why we understand that certainly right now, we're at this level of trying to get things shored up around what we understand PLCs to be, right? Because I asked the question when I first got here around PLCs, right? And I got 32 different answers. Okay, so let's all agree on what that is as we march on forward. So we all have the same expectation about what we're trying to do and the realization of the benefit that it can bring and an understanding of the barriers that are part of the process. Instructional reviews have revealed one critical important thing thus far, right? The standards-based instructional plan is a place that we've got work to do. Right? So this is part of tackling that piece.
No, I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I'd like to comment one more comment about it that, my experience, and I've almost always worked in something kind of quasi PLCs from 1970s to now. And I'll tell you that the basic, quantity that you need in that is teacher-student knowledge. I mean, it doesn't start at the top. It starts at the bottom where those teachers really know who they're working with and how to design a program that fits. They know what the standards are, they know where they want to go. But how do we take this there? And they have to collaborate that and come up with a design that works for them with their skill base. And that's not always easy, but that's, it's a challenge and it will be effective if you get it to work. Good luck to you.
All right, next is Kathy Ramon.
I just briefly want to say, repeat a few things that were said. Richard DeFore's work has been around a long time. In 1993, I moved to Pennsylvania for the first time. My personal children went to a school district, the East Penn School District. I was a principal in the Allentown School District. The East Penn School District dismissed school every Wednesday an hour early. Now, as a parent, that was a nightmare. What was I going to do with my kids for that hour? They did it to have PLCs, so they had that continual playing. I just think if we're really serious about this, giving teachers the time to plan, and really the planning's around, that to me, the whole thing of DeFore's work is the critical inquiries. What is it we want the students to know? How will we know that they've learned it? What are we going to do if they don't learn it? And those kids have already got it. To me, that's the basics. That's, every team worked on that. But, maybe we need some out-of-the-box thinking. Maybe we need to look. How could we sell that to our community? So the daycare step up. or we offer after school that extra hour or something in our school buildings. But if we're really serious about making this work, then, you know, that we've got to come up with something like that free the teachers up to be able to do that. I also think it might be a teacher retention tool.
You know, the interesting point that you make is that the teachers that produce the best results actually solve those questions or answer those problems by themselves. But the goal for principals is to make sure that those problems are being solved throughout their entire school community, throughout their entire grade levels, and throughout their entire content areas. And the only way that they actually do that is by coming together through a collaborative process. And the idea that the board always advances to that needs to be embedded in the school day. And to your point, we've got to be able to provide time for teachers to be able to do this work right.
Thank you, Dr. Bradley.
Thank you.
Next on the superintendent's report is fiscal responsibility. Ms. Crosby?
Yes. Good evening once again. We have a presentation by Hope Pendergrass this evening on the fiscal year ended 2021 financial audit. Hope is with the Jenkins, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Hope.
Thank you, Ms. Crosby. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you all tonight. I just want to go over very briefly the results of the audit report. I'll ask that the slide be advanced to the third slide. There we go. Main thing I want to highlight is, I'm sorry, maybe one more. Main thing I want to highlight is we just finished the audit, and the results of the audit overall was in what we call an unmodified opinion. And so that's the opinion that you can get. That's the best opinion that you can get. We had no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies to report in regards to our internal control report that we issue, our yellow book report. We also had no instances of non-compliance to report, so no findings. So that's kudos to your financial department and the support the board gives them in maintaining that high level of financial reporting. Next slide, please. In addition to the financial statement opinion that we issue, we also issue a report in regard to federal compliance, and that's called your single audit. And in the single audit, we take a look at what we call major programs. So those will be significant programs for the period. This time we looked at Title I and ESSER, which is your COVID-19 money that comes from various different appropriations. And in addition to the clean audit opinion we had on the financial statements, we also had a clean audit opinion on both of these major programs. So again, that's kudos to your financial team, management, and the board for that achievement. I think I want to go to slide 7 next, please. One more. We had no past audit adjustments, or then the audit adjustments that we had were provided by management. So what that means is we didn't find anything that needed to be adjusted. Management, as part of its closeout, was able to give us final numbers essentially that we were able to audit. There's not many clients that we work with. Long and Jenkins serves over 565 governments throughout the Southeast, and there's not very many governments that we work with that we don't find something as part of the closeout process that we have to adjust. So again, I mean, I just want to say that you have a great financial team here, and they're to be applauded for their efforts. We did have one recommendation, and it just relates to the calculation of indirect cost over Title I. The amount was totally immaterial, but we do recommend that maybe that you could strengthen internal controls in regard to that area to improve that process going forward. If you'll skip to slide 11, which is the one that has the first graph on it. Yeah. So this is just a 5-year history of your revenues and transfers in and expenditures or transfers out in your general fund, because that's the heartbeat fund of any governmental organization. This kind of shows the history. So for 2021, you'll see that your revenues slightly exceeded your expenditures. When I was looking at this earlier, you had about I think it was close to $258 million in revenues for fiscal year 21, about 252 million, in expenditures for the year. Next slide, please. This kind of shows you a 5-year history of your change in fund balance. This is not your actual fund balance at the end of this year, but the change in fund balance. So last year, you could tell that you all were very fiscally conservative because you didn't really know what was going to happen as of June 30 of 2020. And then this year, you still were in the positive as far as your revenues exceeding your expenditures by about 5.8 million. And the next slide, please. So this kind of shows you a history of your fund balance. So right now, at the end of FY21, you had fund balance of about $50.5 million. And if you think about that your annual expenditures in 2021 were about $252 million, that means that you had about 20% of your annual expenditures in fund balance or reserves as of 6/30/21. Now remember, that's 1 day in time, and also fund balance doesn't necessarily equal cash, but that just shows you how healthy and how strong your district is at this time. I do want to point out two important GASB pronouncements. GASB is the financial regulatory body for governmental entities, kind of tells us what to do and how to report it. This year, you all implemented GASB 84 having to do with fiduciary activities. So those of you who might be familiar with the annual report will notice that the reporting of the pupil activity funds moved now. It's just reported as a special revenue fund. So it gets reported up in the column with your general fund and with your EIA fund and special programs, etc. And then the next standard that's kind of coming up will be implemented in 2022. So that's the year you're in now, has to do with leases. It pretty much gets, for those of you who are familiar with capital versus operating lease, this kind of gets rid of the delineation between the two. And so anytime you have any kind of right to use of an asset, you'll record that actually on your balance sheet, versus some leases in the past you just recorded like rent as an operating expense month to month. So that will be the big standard that we'll see get implemented in 2022. And then later on, it might be a couple slides over GASB 96. You want to advance a couple of slides, please? One more. There we go. 96 has to do with subscription-based information technology arrangements. So this would be like your long-term right to use for some of your software, some of your digital learning platforms. And essentially that will be recorded pretty much like a capital asset or like a lease, where you'll record a liability for your long-term obligation whenever you sign like a 5-year agreement to use whatever platform it might be for digital learning, and you'll have to record the offsetting asset. So those are just the highlights. I do have some more material in there that I always say is good bedtime reading in my presentation. But those were the things that I wanted to make sure that I communicated with you all again today. I just appreciate the opportunity to come and speak. And again, I can't praise your finance team enough. And we appreciate the opportunity to work with them. I'll be glad to answer any questions if there are any.
Well, thank you, Ms. Pendergast, for your report. And I also want to congratulate Dr. Rodriguez, our CFO, Tanya Crosby, and the entire financial department. It's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you as well. And as we move on to the next item on the superintendent's report, it's under other matters. I want to briefly
address, school threats, and I want to address, COVID update for you this evening. So as you know, last week we had several threats that were made to school campuses, written on building walls, and posted to social media. As I said earlier, we take these matters very seriously, and we collaborate with our law enforcement partners to investigate each one of them. I want to thank our school personnel for their actions, district personnel that we deploy to our schools, and our law enforcement partners for all that they have done and continue to do. Students connected with these threats will be held accountable. And additionally, I would like to thank our parents for their support in engaging with their students around these threats. I made a robocall to parents on Friday, asking them, sharing information with them and asking them to please engage their students with respect to these threats and make sure that they understand the impact that these incidents have and the gravity of these incidents. This is one example of how a parent and school partnership is really important. Our schools are a safe place of learning, and school district personnel as well as law enforcement expend many resources to keep them that way. These types of actions cause school districts, law enforcement, school district personnel, law enforcement, the divert necessary resources, causing students, parents, and employees an enormous amount of anxiety. Our efforts and our work are to help cease those types of things so that our focus remains on academics and the instruction of our kids. On the COVID update, our numbers remain low, which is obviously a good thing. For last week in the school system, we reported to be had 1 positive staff member, 1 quarantine staff member. 15 positive students, 58 quarantine students. I want to wish all of our students, families, and employees a very wonderful and safe holiday season. That concludes Superintendent.
All right, we have a question, Ms. Beaufort.
So today's the 1-year anniversary of the first dose of the vaccine, which I think is exciting. When we come back in January, we're still going to be doing the quarantining of healthy, vaccinated or not vaccinated, healthy and asymptomatic students. Because right now, 15 students are getting quarantined, so there's 1 student for quarantine, everyone positive.
Yeah, what we're going to be doing in the next, even over the holidays, we're going to stay engaged with our with DHEC and our partners at DHEC, which indicate that they've been monitoring and reviewing that information, which is what you're getting at, which is the impact of quarantines. How many of those quarantines actually become positives? At this juncture, that is still their recommendation, and what we're going to do is work with them to look at it to see if there other possibilities that provide for a safe learning environment and keep more kids in school.
Mr. Smith?
Just in terms of what you just, I'd just like to, thank you for, highlighting, last week, I spoke at a program on Sunday, and I spoke and I said I let them know about the seriousness as well, and I had the parents who were very appreciative, and they were glad to get some of that information and to know that the school district was doing everything within their possible. And I just wanted to do that message that it was told to the public that they were appreciative of getting information to the certainty of their kids. So I just want to tell you thank you for that.
Thank you very much. To that point, Mr. Smith, it's not just my robocall, but it's also schools that have specific threats and information like that. Our principals work closely with our communications team and communicate with parents and those students as well at those schools, so that all is helpful. I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez.
Thank you.
All right, we are down to board business action. The first item is approval of the 2022 board meeting calendar. And does somebody want to make a motion and to approve it and then we can discuss it? Or All right, Mr. Earl Kimball,
Make a motion that we accept the calendar for next year.
all right. And Mr. Ryan,
I second.
all right, Dr. Zesty?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a question in regard to the full day budget work session and then the business session that's going to be to certify the budget. I know in the past we've had multiple days and multiple meetings of conversations in regard to the budget, and I didn't know if there was a specific format that we had maybe drafted out and I outlined. I know before it's also come through Finance Committee and some iterations, so I'm just wondering what does the process look like this year? Because I do recognize that having just that full day for the budget alone is a lot, so I think it we have a process.
But I think I can respond to that. I'll let actually, Ms. Crosby, respond, but I know Robin is currently out of town and she told me that she specifically, did the budget, dates, with Tanya's input. So would you like to respond, Tanya?
Yes, actually, Robin and I did work very closely based on a schedule that we have in our finance department. We have a very detailed schedule of our work. And so really the information, I do intend to come forward to the board multiple iterations throughout the spring. Generally, I give a update in maybe a brief update in February, and then we have a little more information in March. Generally, revenue information comes in the last week of March. So we're really making a lot of projections at that point. And as we move through into the April timeframe, we have a lot more details. So I do intend to provide updates at your regular business sessions as the information comes available. I didn't want to lock us into a specific date of additional meetings and that sort of thing. I wanted to provide the board some flexibility to have any special called meetings that you may need based on the timing of events and information. So just wanted to provide some flexibility, but I do have intentions of bringing in regular updates in the spring timeframe.
Yes.
Thank you very much for that. That's helpful information to know that there's going to be other updates coming forward during the spring timeframe. I guess the question that I do have also is, does that May 3rd date, that's a business session also, where we're going to be certifying the budget,
Recording in progress.
The teachers already got their $1,000 bonus.
Not a bonus. The teachers got the stipend for doing that, right?
When was that? When did they receive that?
They are going to receive that, is it on the 17th, Ms. Crosby?
Yes, that's correct. This Friday.
And so this is for everybody else?
That's correct.
Okay. And so the concern might be for new hires. I think Dr. Wisniewski or Ms. Romine brought that up. So couldn't we just add language that says excluding anyone hired effective January 4th? Instead of going back into the 66% of